Thank you for joining the World Trade Center Dublin this morning for this Get Ready to Be Ready program. Today, our focus is to talk about successfully selling into the US market. My name is Maureen Pace, and I'm the president of the World Trade Center Dublin. I have the pleasure of knowing many of you in the audience today and look forward to meeting those of you that I've not yet met. The primary mission of the World Trade Center Dublin is to help companies grow. Among the many strategic business partners we have, one of the strongest and largest networks is our association, consisting of over 300 World Trade Centers located in 100 countries around the globe. We work with these partners to find trusted matches for our members. Today, I'm delighted to have Azu Denton joining us. Azu was introduced to our team by the World Trade Center, Arkansas. With over 20 years of retail experience, Azu has sat on both sides of the table, as a buyer and as a seller. She understands what it takes to sell into large US retail operations. Azu is the founder and CEO of Omni Analytics, Omnichannel Solutions. She has worked within large US retail groups such as Walmart and Sam's Club. She has recently taken on the role of board chair for the Organization of Women in World Trade, Northwest Arkansas region. Azu has also created Women's Wealth 360, a network of women-owned businesses making differences in the lives of other women through shared knowledge, connection, and empowerment. As you can tell, we're lucky to have Azu here today. She's an experienced retail strategist who knows how to position companies for success in the US retail market. Today, she's going to help us get ready to be ready. I'd like to, before we officially formally start the program, I'd like to remind you that our chat feature is open and we're happy to take questions from the audience. If we don't get to all of your questions, be assured that we'll send the responses following this program. Also, I'd like to let you know that we are recording today. So if you would like, this information will be available to you on an ongoing basis. Or if you'd like to share it with your colleagues, or business partners yourselves, please feel free to do so. So we'd like to begin now with a poll to the audience. Please bring up the poll. Thank you. This question is, the World Trade Center Dublin is working on programming and business opportunities with our partner networks. We'd like to know which country you are most interested in within this list: India, Canada, Russia, or Singapore. We'll give you a moment to answer. Interesting. So it looks like Canada and Singapore are of the greatest interest. Thank you for that information, and be assured that we will be providing you with programming about doing business in both Canada and Singapore in the near future. Thanks very much for that. Now I would like to introduce Azu Denton, who will let us know what we need to do to be prepared to sell into the US market. Thank you so much for being here, Azu, and I'll let you take it away.
Good morning, everybody. I am happy to be here. Like Maureen mentioned, I've worked in retail for over 20 years and have a lot of stories to tell. So next, please. There's major shifts in US retail, as you know, especially because of last year. We're changing from buying in stores to buying online, and that has a lot of consequences. Shipping, packaging, all kinds of different opportunities for brands to really be able to sell their products. But it is an opportunity, so that's where the growth is going. So you need to understand that and change accordingly. Next. how do you position your products to be successful in an international launch? Working with different manufacturers, small, medium, and large, first and foremost, you need to know the distribution channels. Are you going to sell to mass retailers, wholesalers, natural, organic, online? All of those questions really dictate, your packaging, your pricing. So you really need to know where you want to distribute your products, what channels you wanna use. Packaging, it's important because you need to have all the right call outs on your packaging. And obviously it has to withstand shipping. And so, companies just don't give enough credit to the packaging because it's really a billboard for your brand. Also, you need to know how to work with international partners. Are you going to have a logistics company, a distributor, or an agent? Those considerations are important for your brand. Value for price. So are you going to be an opening price point product, a mid product, or a premium product? All of that is going to dictate, what the packaging needs to look like and what the price is going to be and how is it going to be positioned in the market. Next. So you need to tell your story as a company. I was working with a company in Italy that had very special product. It's made in Mount Sibillini, Italy, which is one of the blue areas in the world. And, their packaging it does not tell the story. And so, as a brand, you need to be able to tell your story as a company. Do you have a special formulation on your product? Is it a unique process? Is it from a special location? Do you have a specific workforce that produces your product? All of those things are of interest to consumers. So you really need to tell your story because that differentiates you from other companies. Next, please. So you have to be able to navigate the import process. And I work with custom brokers. And, they really have a process on how to help companies navigate how to import products into the US. And you need to know this because you need to have the right product classification, because that not only is going to help you paying less tariffs, it is also going to help you not having to pay fines. So, knowing and understanding, there's 144 government agencies in the US which companies have to deal with. So it's important that you know these things, what agencies are involved, what are my responsibilities, what are the risks, all of those things, really having the help of a custom broker saves you time and effort, and they're not expensive, and you will save in saving and having to pay extra tariffs or fines. Next. The other important thing, I think consumers are very savvy, and if you have your products and you have certifications, you need to put them on your packaging because it's important. It's almost like a selling point. I know I look for it, like for sure non-GMO, organic. All of those things are important in selling your products in the US market. And obviously, one of the things is if you have a food product, you have to have the USDA nutrition labels that has the correct information in it. So, and making the right marketing claims, because that again, you cannot make a claim that you cannot substantiate. So, all of these things are important if you are a brand trying to sell your products in the US.
Thank you for that, Azu. That was, a great overview of what we should all be thinking about when we're looking to bring products into the U.S. market, which is obviously a huge market, and therefore, of great interest to our audience members. Azu, you talked about the transition that has happened as far as buying preference online versus in the bricks and mortar retail stores.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that there's a difference from a cost perspective and time perspective in selling solely through retailers, e-commerce platforms, as opposed to putting product on shelves in the physical stores themselves?
Yes, there is. Actually, there's a lot of small medium companies that just need to learn the process and how their brand is received. They go straight into online first, and it's easy to do. It's not really a lot of complications to sign up agreements and put your product on the shelf, because really it doesn't cost the retailer much to put your product on. So it's easy, it's good. The only thing that you need to know is it's a limitless shelf, meaning there's so many products that your product is going to get lost. But you need to use social media. You need to use social media to promote your product. And so with those two things, you should be able to test and learn. I mean, that's the thing, is you test and learn, and then you're ready to sit on the shelf and have less disruptions. I don't know, recalls. The product, the packaging somehow is not right. So you can make all the changes you need to go to the shelf. So yes, it will be faster and easier and cheaper.
Right. And in your opinion, Azu, if a company is looking to come into the US, and so, understanding what you've just taught us around online versus, in store, as a beginning, how do you do that? What would be the steps that the participants in our audience would take to figure out, what are the best online opportunities for them? And then how do they manage that, once that's decided?
Well, first and foremost, only the Procter and Gambles of the world go directly to anywhere. Okay, everybody else, you cannot just knock on retailers' doors, whether it's online, or you have to have an agent. Talk about agent and distributors. Distributors have thousands of items. They just ship it. I mean, they don't really put any effort into marketing or anything, versus an agent. And a lot of companies just don't understand this, because if you had to set up shop here in the US, you would have to find a selling expert, logistics expert, that can man that office. And so what you're getting for the money, which is a percentage of the orders, is you're getting a whole team, meaning marketing, selling, logistics, and so that's what gets your brand to hit the road running. I mean, if not, it's going to take you a long time to learn, to understand how to do it, who to contact. They already have those connections established. So it's, and they have already established themselves, because, they need to help manufacturers have the ways of working of that retailer. So if you don't know what the ways of working are, then, it's going to take you a long time to do this. And so if you want to do it fast, you find, the right international partner for you, and then you team up with them, and then you work through them. So
And we have, to that point, Azu, a question just came in from the audience. Can you talk about agents? So do you, in thinking about coming into the US market, is it one agent that you need, or do you need several agents? I think something that most people in our audience, I'm sure, are aware of is that each state within the United States tends to act like its own country, right? There are a lot of different rules and taxes vary, that type of thing. So when thinking about coming into the U.S. market, is it one agent that you use, or do you use several?
No, you use one agent. There actually, there's different agents for different retailers. Like, Target is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so there's lots of agents there. Walmart, there's a lot of Walmart agents here. There's few agents that really go across, and my recommendation will be that you do that, because it'll be easier, so you don't have to deal with this person and that person and that person. But in overall, the agent will help you with, like, custom brokers or logistics company. If you need somewhere to ship your product and then distribute it from there, they have all those connections, and they can hook you up for sure, so you don't have to waste time to interview. They already have established companies they work with, so that because that's their job. It's to help the manufacturers sell their product faster.
Right. And Azu, what are the guidelines around the percentages that these agents take to work on behalf of a company?
So it depends on the product category, but it's usually between 3 and 5% of the orders. You have to do market intelligence. You got to know, for example, in the case of the legume pasta, what is out there, what's the pricing, how are you going to best. So they have to do all of that legwork, and they do the legwork without even charging you anything until they sell the product. If they sell the product, then it's between 3 and 5%, depending on the category. Some categories have more margin than others. And so that's basically the, customary charges.
Okay. So is there a way to work with a broker and avoid the retainers that they typically charge, or is this separate from that, Azu?
There are some companies that charge retainers, because what happens is you need to know in what cycle the retailer is. For example, let's say pasta, it's reviewed once a year, let's say in August. Okay, so if you come into the market and it's already past that, means that you're going to have to wait another year to be able to be introduced into the, they can have the conversations and all that, but then there's, the retailers have a specific dates when you can come and present new products. So in that length of time, you have to get all your, how are you going to distribute it? Is it going to be a logistics company? Is the retailer going to pick up the product and sell it themselves? All of that, within the year, you can have all that information and done. So, but they do charge, because there is time spent, working with you as a company. And so, that's the reason that, some of them charge a retainer, but some of them don't. They just basically, for the percentage, if the product is good, it's going to sell. So, and the brokers, the more you sell, the more they make. So their incentive is to sell your product. So, some of them, don't charge the retainer, but they will charge the percentage.
Right. And in those cases, typically they'll charge a higher percentage than someone that's working on a retainer. Is that right, or is that incorrect?
Not necessarily. It just depends on the business model of the broker. And I know some brokers, that because they do have the established relationships, they're going to get something in. They are going to get a product in. So, they charge for that service. And
Right.
some that, they say, hey, I will work to get your product in. And until that point, I'm not going to charge you anything. And obviously, if you have to travel or, things that are out of the norm, then it's something extra. But some of them don't charge, and they say, I will charge as soon as you sell your product, I'll get a percentage of the order. So
Right, right. And how long do relationships last with these brokers? What is the typical, so one of our companies is, signs on with a new broker. How long can they expect to be with that broker, typically?
well, it depends on how you look at it. If you're, let's say, at the end of a year or 2 years, going to invest in having an office of your own, then in 2 years you need to learn the ropes. You need to learn what it means to sell to retailers. What does it take? Because it's very, I'm telling you, labor intensive because of the amount of data that retailers have. So you have to be on top of the data. And so, the brokers, that's their job. I mean, it's their, they have the relationship. They're, in front of the retailers all the time. They work with the company saying, hey, here's what the data shows me. This product is good. This one is good. This one we probably need to change, and we better do it rather than the retailer telling us to delete it. So, all of those things, the manufacturer is going to have to learn how to do it. And I am telling you, it will cost thousands of dollars because, salespeople that have the relationships and all of that, have high salaries, people in replenishment also. So, people that are sales analysts. So, you have a whole team. So you have to replicate that team. And basically, most manufacturers, that's what they do, is they replicate their teams to what the retailer is. And so, you have a replenishment person, you have a salesperson, you have an analyst that analyzes the sales and, works with the salesperson to recommend, hey, instead of deleting the product from all this stores, we're going to delete it from these stores and leave it here because that's what makes sense. I mean, there's so much data that, you really need to be on top of it. That's part of the negotiation with a retailer. The more you speak the language, the more they know that you are on top of your business. And just imagine, they have thousands of manufacturers who they deal with. The squeaky, the manufacturer that is late shipping, that's something wrong for the product, will not last. So, you have to be, that's why you have to do your homework, is because once you're ready, you're solid. If you have a good product, you're solid. You'll be selling and shipping and so.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's and it feels, I think a point that you've made to me, Azu, as we've talked about entry into the US market is, it feels daunting, right? Like there's a lot that you need to know. It's an expensive market. So, but if you really, find the right partner, find the right agent, broker, and work with that particular company, it doesn't have to feel daunting, right? Because they're going to guide you through that process. Is that
Yes, absolutely. That's the point of a broker versus a distributor. You know,
Yeah.
a broker, I don't like to call them brokers because it's really a solution provider.
Yeah.
Is going to add value to your brand, and that's the bottom line, because they see firsthand what's selling, how is the product looking on the shelf, who are the competitors, they are in the midst of all of that. And so like I said, their interest is to sell more of your product. So versus a distributor which has like thousands of products, and it's not the same. It's not the same level of service that a agent or a broker will give you compared to if you are just listed under some distributor. And
Right.
one of the things that I've worked with many companies, and they say to me, if we work, let's say, with a logistics company, I sell to them and they just distribute, is you lose control. You lose control because today they will buy from you, tomorrow they will buy from Brazil.
Yeah.
So, you maintain, and that's the thing with a broker, is you maintain the ownership of your brand. You are the one who decides, how is it going to be distributed in the market. And so that, is invaluable. Otherwise,
Right.
you become another product on the shelf that might or might not be sold next season. So,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
you have to have longevity, and to have longevity is, know your customer, know your consumer, um, use the data from the retailers to help you manage, and obviously have excellent logistics. And with that, you retailers are going to love you because you're not a problem. And so just because they have to deal with so many companies, that's why a lot of buyers just are hesitant to bring somebody in, just because of that reason, because they haven't worked with a retailer, they don't know what is expected. But if you have a broker, which that's like going between, and they know this person knows how to deal with them, then it's a buffer. It's a
Right.
buffer, for mistakes that the manufacturer might make, or that the broker can prevent. So
Right.
that's the reason why, whether they like it or not, that's the service a solution provider provides to the
Yeah.
manufacturer.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. One of the things that we've seen over and over again with companies coming into the United States in particular who go directly with a distributor is that they may very well get onto shelves, but their growth is potential is not there unless it's it's a product that distributor has some kind of a real affinity for. We've seen companies get into great stores, but never expand nationally within those stores because there's no one paying day-to-day attention. And we've seen that over and over again, Azu.
Yes, it's because if you think about it, just a buyer has the same issue. They have thousands of items that they're responsible for, but you as a manufacturer is your product, your baby, so you got to take care of it. So that's the point of having a broker who knows the language, who can talk to the retailer, and it's about knowing the business, what's selling, what's not selling, how what promotions we can do together to increase sales, and so all of that interaction, it's invaluable. It's invaluable. And if you are a company in another country, just imagine the degree of difficulty having to talk directly with the retailer. It's not going to happen. And they don't give audience, believe me. It's they don't, very seldom. They have times when the suppliers come and talk to them, they just don't talk, take phone calls from people, just because time consuming. It's they don't have the time. So it's very pointed, very focused, and so the brokers know when to call, when to make appointments, to maybe like a preview presentation of products, and start a conversation. And so that's what they do. But as I said, if you're not at Procter and Gamble, you're more than likely not going to get an appointment, just because they need to get to know you. Who are you? Do you really have good logistics? Are you a good company? And so
Yeah.
that's how it all works.
And Azu, when we're thinking about working with with an agent, do they do the research for you to understand where your product fits? Is if there's a gap in the market for that product, or if that there might be a saturated category. Well, is that one of the initial conversations that you can expect to have?
Yes. What they do is, obviously they have to, because you are not going to know every product in every product category, so you need to do some research. And one of the first things that happen is, okay, so what's out in the market? To tell you an example of that, I was working with a supplier that makes chips, potato chips, fried with coconut oil and olive oil. And so they're like, our product is wonderful. And I'm like, okay. So I went looking, and all of the products in the US that are fried with coconut oil and olive oil are all what do you call a kettle cooked. Yeah. They're not. That's the premium. That's a premium in the US. And I was asking him, he's like, well, why don't you make them kettle cooked? And they're like, well, in our country, the government dictates because less fat, so they have to just cook it normally. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, if you want to come to the US, it's going to have to be kettle cooked, because then you're not going to be to par with the other brands. So that's the opportunity. It's like you need to know these things. You need to know where you need to play. You need to know what the pricing is. There's another company that had sold to a distributor, and they were selling online, and I look at their pricing and it was below the average. And I was like, why are you selling your product below the average of this category? And on top of that, your product is probably superior. Right. So all of that work is done, all of that homework is done by, because again, if you take an item, it has to be something you can sell, right. And so if you can't sell that for XY reason, then you need to know, and then the company needs to know, because they need to make some changes to it. So right. And a lot of companies are hesitant because it's like it's their baby, their product. They're so attached to it. But the thing about it is when you go to another country, you need to know what the preference of those consumers is, not what I want or what is in the other country. It's what is the preference in the country that you're going to. And so this company had no idea that kettle cooked is the premium. And if you are selling premium, you have to sell it, kettle cooked. And so, that's a small thing. And I think they can do it. It's just a matter of they didn't know. They're going by what they sell in that country. So.
Right. And it's been our experience, Azu, that typically agents will not take on a product that they can't sell. Yes. It's just they won't do it because they're looking to make the commissions, right? Like they don't want a product where and it's not necessarily even that the product won't sell. They may not have the right connections to get it to market. Is that right?
Yes. It all has to, that's what they do, the homework. It's so they know, where does it fall? I mean, is it really feasible? They have to do the math as far as, let's say, how many units are we going to sell in a year, so that they can figure out their commission. You can't sell some, and if it's going to be sustainable. because you can't just spend all this time that we're talking about doing research and all these things for a product that is going to sell very little. So,
Right.
and it has to have a potential. Obviously,
Right.
you're not going to, some products, are, big success right off the gate. Some don't. Some take time to develop. And so, they have to know this and, take that
Right.
into account.
That makes perfect sense. Just as a point of clarification, we've used the term agent and we've used the term broker. Are they one and the same, Azu, or are they different?
Yes. The only thing I don't like, a lot of people don't like brokers because I think they don't see a justification of their existence. And I like to call brokers agents because they're your agent, they're your selling agent, and they're just an extension of your own company. You don't see them as somebody separate, somebody, obviously you have to work together with the company to be successful. They're the ones who make the product, you're the ones who sell it. So there has to be a relationship there. And so that's why I call them agents or solution providers, because it's more than just, one thing is to sell a product and the other thing is the after sales. The after sales is, a lot of companies don't get it. Oh my gosh, I sold to Walmart, and the work just begun, because it's about, you gotta have everything in place to be able to sell it, and it's just the beginning.
Right.
And
Yeah,
that's what.
I mean, we certainly have seen that ourselves with a lot of companies where they decide to go a particular route without developing a relationship with the agent. Or I like solution provider because I really feel like a broker really is an agent, a solution provider, even more so on behalf of companies. And so we have seen where this hasn't happened, and a company gets a buy from a Walmart, and they get onto the shelves, and that's it. That's the end, because they don't have someone looking after their product. And Walmart has so many products on the shelves. They're not always on top of things needing to be replenished. That's what the solution provider is doing on behalf of these companies.
Yes, they absolutely do, because that's part of the learning. Like I said, not sometimes a product does not sell everywhere, but sells very well in certain areas. So instead of saying we're going to take it from everywhere, we just need to take it from certain places, because obviously inventory is money, so you don't
Right.
want to have it where it's collecting dust. And
Right.
so that's the value of the, I mean, they're using the data from the retailer to look at all these areas. Not only that, they help the buyer achieve their numbers, and you have sales, inventory, return on investment. And so, you got to make your inventory work,
Right.
produce money. So, a lot of people don't understand it. Inventory is money on a shelf. And if it's not turning, then it's not working. So that's what the solution providers do, is they have staff. I mean, they have sales, analysts, replenishment people, and they're looking at where they have to update the forecast on an item. All of that is very technical. I can tell you, because I teach suppliers. It's very technical. It's like, okay, what do you need to know to tell the replenishment buyer or the replenishment person that this particular product needs to up its forecast? And so, all of those tweaks need to be made in their systems. So, normal people just don't know, all of these tools that retailers have, so the brokers do, or the solution providers do. So that's the value that they bring. It's not only that, it's knowing all the levels of engagement. So
Right.
with Walmart, it's all you have to have like tentacles. You have to have people that are salesperson to buyer, replenishment person to replenishment person. Then the salesperson needs to deal with the buyer and also the person above that, and then the GMM. And so that relationship at all levels also is important, and you achieve that with having a team of people doing the work. So it's not just as easy as selling something and seeing it fly from the shelf. It's about meeting the scorecard, how are your sales, how are your inventory, how's your turns, how's your margin. Another thing, for example, I was working with a company that sold it's a special cake. And so they're like, oh, our margin is 25%. And so when I go look, their margin was less than 25%. And it's like, well, why are we losing margin? Is the retailer is losing the margin. And why is it losing the margin? Is because they had to throw some of the stuff away. Why? Because one of the buyers apparently told them to change the packaging, and the packaging was getting soaked. And so they had to throw the whole thing away. So then they had to change to a plastic container. And so, through all of that, a normal supplier might not know where to look to make sure that what they gave the retailer as a margin is maintained. If it's not maintained, then you're gonna lose your space because somebody else can come and take your spot. So all of those things you need to know. I mean, it's to the lowest level degree of information, and all of that
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
the buyers.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And there are those granules of information that you have to trust in your solution provider to prepare you with. One of the things that we've seen companies lose margin on is around packaging, just as you've mentioned, but packaging as it relates to US labeling. So companies, we've seen them be advised to go and completely change their packaging at the onset of their introduction into the US market. But in reality, they could sticker that package at the beginning, and that would have saved them thousands and thousands of dollars. But if someone doesn't tell them that, it can be a very expensive mistake.
Yes. Oh, yes. Absolutely. You have to find solutions that are going to be cost effective, and that's again, that's what the solution provider would provide. It's an option. It's like, hey, here's what we need to do. Putting a label on top of it is probably going to be a lot cheaper than having to scrap all that packaging and start new. So,
Right.
and you can work with the retailer saying, hey, our packaging will eventually turn. We just have to sell through what we have. We don't want to lose the money. So, all of those considerations, are part of the negotiation, and the discussions between, the seller and the buyer.
That absolutely. And again, I think back to a point that I think you've been making, over and over again, around this relationship, with your agent and the importance of that. While it may feel costly at the beginning, the reality of that is that it's saving you a lot of money.
Yes, it's saving you money and building your brand. I mean,
Mhm.
that's how you need to look at it. Obviously, I love to work in international because, I mean, selling in the US, it's easy. selling in international countries becomes more difficult. But you as a company become more solid, because you have to go through all these gyrations of knowing and understanding that the consumers on each market and modifying it, and knowing the points of distribution. How are you going to go to market? Like, in Europe is one way, here is another way. So you need to learn all those things. So as a company, if you sell internationally, you're certainly, more stable, like they say. If you sell, for example, things that sell, certain times of the year, then you can sell that product somewhere else in that time of the year. So you don't ever, you don't ever stop, so it's selling internationally, it gets a little complicated, but you do have the help. So
Right.
it should be, for the amount of money that really you pay with the percentages, it's well worth it.
Right.
Worth it.
Yes. And if you have, if a company has a premium product, a zoo, and they might be selling into a very high-end store in Ireland, let's say Brown Thomas, is there potential for them to, because their quantities would be smaller, is there potential for them to come to the US and sell into some of the high-end retailers in the US? For instance, a Neiman Marcus or a Saks Fifth Avenue.
Yes, absolutely. Usually products that are, small quantities have more margins. So, but yes, absolutely. If it's a good product, if it's desired by the market, I would say, the value proposition. It's a value proposition. It's it's the value there, and people are looking for that. Then you're certainly going to be successful. Whether it's a product, a small product, or if it's a product that is a premium product that people are looking for. I mean, one of the products from Ireland I love, it's the butter, and knowing and understanding how that process of making butter, with the cows that are being grazed, and not just in a CAFO operation, how that is more nutritional for you than not. I don't mind paying $1 more for the product. So consumers are savvy. Consumers, are looking for things, especially now with what happened, in the past year with the coronavirus. You know, understanding, food, how it affects us, how, is the things that you buy and put in your body, has a potential of, making you healthy. Consumers are savvy. They're starting to understand, like I said, like non-GMO, like now people are starting to understand. When I went to Italy with the World Trade Center, and they were talking about, what are you talking about non-GMO? We don't have any GMO products in Italy. And I almost fell backwards, because it's like, oh my gosh. And people here in the US don't know. They're just learning what are the repercussions of GMO.
Right, right.
So, that's some of the certifications that, a lot of companies might overlook, but no, it's, a lot of consumers are looking for those certifications.
Right, absolutely. It's interesting with the many of the buyers in our network. What comes up from the U.S. all the time is, consumers are really interested in pasture raised things now. They're becoming more educated, like around GMO. And do you have any companies that fit in that category? And from the World Trade Center Dublin's perspective, we're like, yes, most of our companies fit into that category because, these products are coming, out of Ireland, and that's just how things are managed, so to your point around Italy and the non-GMO, the European countries, many of them are ahead of the US as far as the health standards of the food, I think.
Yeah, and that's something that needs to be talked about in the packaging. That's what I said. The packaging is so important. It's a billboard for your company, and it has to pass the test, of catching people's eyes. Maybe talking a little bit about who you are, what drives you as a company, what's important to you. A lot of I look for that stuff. I really do, because I want to know who am I. Customers vote with their dollar.
Yeah.
Customers vote for the dollar, and I personally, I just love certain products because of that, because I know that, they don't have extra things, fillers, dyes or anything like that. And so, for companies to take the time and produce a product that has potential implications on my health, I am going to support them. I am going to support. And like I said, if I have to spend one more dollar, I will, because it keeps the doctor away for sure. So
Right. I agree completely, and we see that over and over again. What consumers in the U.S. being willing to pay more for the right product, and even in some of the larger groups, retailers. You mentioned Walmart. You have a lot of experience there. We're seeing even Walmart looking for healthier products to put on the shelves, where before that would not have been a consideration.
Yes. And I think because of what's happening in stores, they've lost the volume going online. And not only because people are not going to the store, but it's the extra products that you buy that, they put all these displays in front of you, so you trip and you buy. They don't have that ability anymore.
Right.
People are not going to the store, so they have to bring customers into the store through new products. There's I buy a product. It's a sugar that has 0 calories and 0 carbs. And at the beginning, I was buying it at Amazon, and eventually, Walmart is carrying it now. And so I was happy, because then I don't have to, whenever I go to the store, I can just buy it. So
right.
They're starting to put more and more products that you would usually wouldn't see normally
Right.
at Walmart.
Right. We're getting a lot of, I'm trying to make my way through where we have a lot of great questions that are coming in from the audience. And one of the things, Azu, that we've had several questions around, and I know that this is difficult to answer, but because we've had so many questions about it, I want to ask you, what percentage of margin do you need to cover the cost of exporting into the U.S.? Is there a benchmark for that? A rule around it's X percent or not?
I am not. You can always go backwards. I mean, start with the cost and then start adding. And that's kind of like the homework you need to do in order to see whether your cost is going to be competitive or not, and what is it that you need to modify. And
Yeah.
you got to start with your cost, and the very best cost, and then start adding those things that you need to pay for, and then figure out where you're at, and then see how you compare, and then start from there. Obviously, as you start, you're going to have more expenses, and then as you learn and things get easier, obviously you might save some money from certain places. So
Right, right. Makes perfect sense. We've talked a lot about, finding the right solution provider, Azu. And there are many. I mean, the United States is big, and there are many of them, as there are many of them in any large country. It's a dating game, right? Like, so it's a marriage, finding the right partner. Do you have advice around how companies should go about that?
well, you just need to interview people, and I'm telling you, just because somebody charges you a lot of money doesn't mean that they're going to give you the service. And you do need to interview them. You need to go to their office. You need to um, you know have a conversation, and build that rapport, with that company. And they show you around. They tell you, what other companies they're selling. Usually, brokers don't sell companies with the same product, because so that there's no conflict of interest, so they don't do that. And then but yeah, you have to interview them. You need to know what you need out of them. If you need the logistics part, if you need the sales analysis part, if you need to know what you need as a company to be serviced. And if this company is not willing to do those things for you, then you can check them off. But like I said, just because some of them charge a lot of money doesn't mean that they're going to give you the service. You just need to um, really interview them, go to their office, look at their staff, and don't just do things over the phone, because this is important. This is
Right,
important for your company. And you know uh, to me, it's like integrity and transparency. If they don't have integrity and transparency, I wouldn't work with them.
right,
uh,
right.
and there's so many companies like that. They just want to make a buck
Yeah,
and not do the work. And there's some really committed companies that are good, and
yeah.
give you the service, give you everything they have. And so
Right, right. And
might not be known per se, but um, they're
yeah,
definitely in your camp.
yeah. And it's been our experience at the World Trade Center Dublin, for sure, that the one of the biggest mistakes that companies make is not finding the right partner. There are a lot of big brokers, Azu, that are right for certain companies, right? Once you're an established brand and you have significant presence in the United States, it makes sense to go to the big importers and the big brokers. But as a small company entering the US market, that's where you get lost and waste a lot of money. Is that right?
Yes, yes. Like I was saying, just because somebody's known doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the best of the best. I have companies that I work with just because I know them personally for a long time. And their ethics, transparency. It's not about just making money. It's about really helping a company go from 0 to 10 and selling their products, and building that relationship. You want to build a relationship. You don't just want to hire somebody and then here, hand them the keys and here you go. It's like, you can't do that. It's your baby. You got to protect it. You got to, that's why it's the hand in hand. You cannot. And I think by that token, the manufacturer grows in knowledge, because as they work together, you can apply those learnings to other retailers. So it's,
Right.
it's it's imperative that you do your homework. And uh, like I said, just because you pay more doesn't mean you're going to get more.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. This has been, we could go on and on for hours with you, Azu. But we're at the end of our time now, and I'm just going to ask you one last question, which has come up again over and over again from our audience today. What's the average retailer margin as a percentage? Is there one, or does it vary?
It varies. Like food, I think it's like up to 12%. That's what they like to make in food. Other categories, I'm telling you, I work electronics, it was 80% margin. So, it varies very much so depending on the category. But food, typically in the 12%
Yeah.
to
Okay.
give to them. So
Great. Well, thank you for that. And I know we didn't get to all of the questions that the audience has asked today, but certainly we will get back to everyone and provide them with answers to their questions. And we'll talk with Azu about them and make sure that she feels comfortable with the answers that we're providing. I can't thank you enough, Azu, for being with us today, for being a trusted partner of the World Trade Center Dublin. We look forward to continuing our relationship with you, introducing you to the companies that we work with, and more programming and training that the companies are looking for. So thank you for your time today, and really for an informative discussion. Greatly appreciated, and I know we'll be doing this again soon. So thanks so much.
Thank you. I was, this is my cup of tea. I love working with manufacturers, getting them ready to sell to whoever they desire. And, I'm here to help. So.
That's great. Terrific. Well, we know you are, and we know we can trust you as a resource. So as far as dating is concerned, anyone in the audience right now who's looking for a partner and would like to talk to Azu, be happy to make that connection for you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we look forward to our next session around doing business. We'll continue these sessions on doing business in the United States. And certainly, we heard early on, you're interested in Canada, you're interested in Singapore. Those will be coming right up for you. So thanks again for joining today, and everyone be safe and take good care.